In post-traumatic stress disorder, someone experiences a terrifying, life-threatening, or traumatic event, and after the event is over, they're not able to put it in the past. They feel like the danger is still happening now. They may develop severe anxiety, irritability, flashbacks, and other symptoms that disrupt their daily life and relationships. In this video series, we'll discuss the biology of how PTSD affects the brain, how some coping strategies can delay or prevent healing, and how effective treatments for PTSD work. Okay, so to understand PTSD, we need to first understand some basic brain anatomy. So the brain is divided into different sections based on how important they are for basic survival. So the brainstem, these are the most vital functions. You can see they're also closest to the body. So that's going to control our heart rate, our breathing drive. It also controls our drives for hunger, for thirst. It helps us maintain our body temperature, controls our sex drive, things like that. So that's the most primitive part, and that's what we share with basically all animals. Next, we have the limbic system, and that is the emotional brain. We share this part of the brain with mammals. And two important parts of this are the amygdala, that is the fear center of the brain, that's the alarm that triggers the fight or flight reaction. And the hippocampus is the part of the brain that helps us learn and helps us store memories. So when there's an emotional component to memories, they're a lot stronger. And the hippocampus helps us learn from our emotions. And finally, the outermost part of the brain is called the neocortex, and that is the most advanced part. That is what makes humans more advanced than other species. So the outer part of the brain controls our language, our abstract thinking, our problem solving, planning, more advanced functions. Now let's talk about what happens when the brain responds to danger. So when a threat is detected, the amygdala is activated. The amygdala, remember, is the alarm system of the brain, and it's part of the limbic system. And the limbic system basically takes charge, so other parts of the brain are less functional. And if you think about it, when someone is extremely emotional, often they're not really thinking logically or acting logically as much as they usually would. So there's less prefrontal cortex activity. So the limbic system is taking charge, and the key is it's sending a rapid signal to the body. So that way we can run, we can freeze, we can fight back, but the key is we want to react quickly for our safety. We don't have time to think about this threat, we just need to act. And thankfully the limbic system is closer to the body than the cortex, so we can send that signal quickly. And the amygdala activates the sympathetic nervous system, which is the fight or flight. And basically what happens is the hypothalamus talks to the rest of the body, and the adrenal glands, which are near the kidneys, will secrete epinephrine, which is adrenaline, into the blood. And basically many things will happen that'll help pump blood to our muscles so that way we can effectively run away. So our heart rate and blood pressure go up, our breathing rate goes up, our digestive system becomes less active, and blood flow goes away from the digestive system and more towards the muscles. And this is actually why when we have fear or anxiety, people may get GI symptoms like indigestion, upset stomach, nausea. So we're diverting blood to the muscles. Our liver is going to increase blood sugar, glucose, because the muscles need a source of energy. That's the sympathetic nervous system, and that lets us quickly respond to a threat for our safety. When the threat resolves, or when we're about to run out of adrenaline, now the prefrontal cortex is able to come back online, and it's able to inhibit the amygdala. We become less overwhelmed by emotion and more able to think logically. And the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest or digest system, is able to now take control. And that's a more slow process compared to the sympathetic nervous system. Another nice thing that happens is that when the threat is over, the hippocampus tries to learn from it. It communicates with the amygdala and tries to put the memory of the threat in context. So how it happened, where it happened, when it happened, and it helps us get closure. It helps us, resolve this event, helps us put it to bed and move on. All right, now we can discuss what happens in PTSD. So PTSD involves exposure to trauma and then getting stuck. So trauma is not just a threat. Trauma is an extremely horrible, morally challenging event that the body struggles to process. It feels terrifying, and it also involves some kind of situation where one's life is at risk or one is at high risk for severe injury. But basically, the amygdala during the threat, during the trauma, is firing intensely. And the brain prioritizes survival. The limbic system is flooding the brain with fear and other intense emotions. This could be intense panic, but in some people it could actually be dissociation, which is a state of zoning out severely where there's like a really low brain activity. The brain is prioritizing survival over everything else, and that includes processing memories or processing, what is going on. So because the brain is so flooded, the prefrontal cortex is just not really functioning well. It's suppressed. And as a result, it's harder for the person to think logically. It's harder for them to focus, and they're not able to say, I'm safe now, when the threat's over. It also affects the hippocampus. The hippocampus is less active, and that means that it's not able to put the trauma in the past. It's not able to sort it out and give it context. So as a result, in PTSD, the brain stays stuck in a state of survival, and it's not really able to relax or enjoy things it used to. So after the trauma, the brain's, as we said, stuck. It's not able to return to baseline. The amygdala becomes hyper-reactive or hypersensitive, meaning any kind of trigger, anything that reminds it of the trauma at all, even neutral cues, become signs of acute danger. And that leads to the same reaction, the flooding of emotion, of panic or dissociation. So as a result, the person becomes on high alert, hypervigilant, easily startled. They may get nightmares or flashbacks, and they're just not able to relax. They're not able to sleep or focus. The prefrontal cortex is too weak. It's not able to put a brake on the amygdala. It's not able to say, I'm safe now, because it's overwhelmed by the stress hormones and the flooding. And the hippocampus is not able to sort the present versus the past. So when a memory happens, it feels like it's happening now. It feels like the danger is occurring now. So one example could be if a combat veteran hears fireworks, the amygdala automatically says gunfire, danger. The prefrontal cortex is too weak to say, no, it's not danger, you're safe. The hippocampus is just confused, not able to say this happened in the past. A couple more things that are happening. The chronic stress is causing chronic release of cortisol. The chronic cortisol is doing many negative things. It's increasing blood pressure and glucose, which can cause hypertension and diabetes, which can increase our risk for heart attacks and strokes. It also is causing weight gain. It's causing decreased testosterone. It's causing us to feel fatigued and also causing us to have trouble falling asleep. It's also causing a weakened immune system and making us more susceptible to illness. So there you have it. In PTSD, you have an intensely active amygdala and limbic system. You have a weak prefrontal cortex that can't suppress it well, and you have an impaired hippocampus that's not able to contextualize the memories and sort them in the past. So PTSD is not a failure of willpower, it's really the brain stuck in survival mode and the body constantly being overwhelmed by chronic stress. In the next video, part 2, I will discuss how alcohol and other drugs worsen PTSD and prevent recovery. I will also discuss how effective treatments for PTSD work on the brain and how to heal from PTSD. Thanks for joining me. See you next time.